Hey, it's Jonathan, and I am here with Zenia A, and she's been kind enough to agree to do one of these case study calls with me, interviews, and we've been working together about 4 months. And why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you found your way to me and the work we're doing together?
Right. Thanks, Jonathan. Really appreciate this time. And let me just start with my background. I've been a competitive athlete most of my life. I started at the age of 7, pretty much went nonstop for almost 2 decades. And, I had a lot of injuries. I was always a smaller frame, trying to do a very competitive track event, the 100 and 200 meters, very, sprint and power focused. And with my lean frame, I was always injured, maybe more frequently than others, I should say. And I think that just added up over time. And while I continued to compete in my 30s, I got plagued with more and more injuries. And um, even though I've stopped competitive racing at this time, I'm still very active. I work out 5, 6 days a week. I lift heavy. I still run. And over time, I noticed, especially in the last couple of years, that I had more pronounced injuries, like a groin injury, a hamstring injury, a shoulder injury. And maybe these were just a culmination of this, the impact and the stress of all the years that I was training and working out. And obviously, with age, it takes a little longer to recover from these injuries. And the one thing I had been aware of for almost the last 2 decades was the fact that, I had some kind of misalignment issues. And I would go to people and they would say, hey, you're weak in this area. And, this is where you need to strengthen. And over time, I learned that it wasn't necessarily weakness and strength so much as a misalignment, which was causing me not to appropriately use the muscles in my body. And I was on the search for someone who can help me with that. Went through the traditional route of having, my running analyzed, and it always came down to people saying, accurately pinpointing, what's missing, but never being able to tell you how to resolve it other than, hey, you're weak, strengthen it. And I think it was just one day that I was Googling something either about my foot or plantar fasciitis, and I landed on one of your videos. And then I read much more about you and thought it was the right time to, start working with you. And I engaged, and it's just been an awesome journey since I've known you.
So it's kind of interesting in that you saw, I might be wrong about this, I'm not sure, but you signed up with me pretty quickly after you found out about me. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, most people that work with me follow me and are on my email list for sometimes years
Mm.
before they engage. So that's a really cool thing from my perspective, and that you were able to make that leap pretty quickly. So this is a question, and I hope I'm not wrong because I actually mentioned this on my latest podcast. Like you were something of like a child prodigy runner, but you weren't really, they weren't teaching you technique, right? They were just saying get out and run and do what you do.
Yeah, so definitely not a lot of technique. There was some technique as I started getting really good, maybe in my teens. But I want to say by then it was almost a little too late, because in your teens, you're already established with the way you are. You're already adapting, the body's already adapting from childhood to teenage years, just from a whole evolution perspective. Then you add on the whole concept of really competitive training and working out on a regular basis and uh, competing, which just exacerbates that. And you get to the point where, far from being able to correct anything, you're just constantly fighting this. I don't want to call it a losing battle, but it's a constant battle to keep getting better, keep competing at your best, but at the same time, keep correcting what's not right. And like I said, sometimes it's almost too late then. Um, but I still believe that technique can be taught and should be taught almost at any age as you progress, because even if it doesn't help you in that moment, it always helps with the evolution of you continuing to do whatever you're doing in the years to come.
Yeah, as you know, and anyone watching this knows, I am technique obsessed, but I'm also like, I showed that video the other day of the improper alignment of that guy jumping and landing on his outer ankles. It's both, right? It's this mixture of technique, like you got to learn the rules before you break the rules. I really believe that, but it all starts with technique. So you showed up that your like main issue was popliteal pain, which is a muscle at the back of the knee. Is that right?
That's correct. So about a year ago, I was running one morning, and I could feel my piriformis and my IT band pretty tight for weeks before that. And I went out to run one morning, and I felt this horrible snap right in the bicep femoris area. I knew it wasn't good. I came back. I tried to ice it for hours that day, and everything helped a little bit, but I felt like it was so bad in those first couple of days. I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand. I certainly couldn't turn from left to right. And most often when I get a leg injury, I'll continue to do upper body stuff and vice versa. I couldn't do anything with this injury. And I want to say it took me a whole week to be able to stand on both feet and not feel this jabbing pain. And then it kept going and it kept getting better, but never completely went away. And, I got a lot of massage work done. I got a lot of myofascial release work done. And just as I felt like it was getting better, I went back out to start working out, and I noticed instantaneously that my ITs were getting tight again. And that's what prompted me to sit up and say, I can't keep doing this. There's something causing my ITs to tighten up. And I need to find a way to be able to release them to do what I need to do. And I think that's where you came in with your amazing, ideas on fix your posture, right? I mean, I've looked at my posture, and for most people, it's like, you have a great posture, you have a great running style, but nobody could really do what you did, take it to the level that you did and say, hey, your posture is causing your ITs to be constantly engaged and tight. And by releasing this, you automatically release them. And I have to tell you, it wasn't even 3 weeks that I corrected my posture and my IT started loosening out. And the first thing my massage therapist said was, hey, I feel your ITs from the work that you're doing, but they're no longer as tight as they used to be. So for me, that was definitely the wake-up call that, I could slowly start working on all the areas of my body, the older injuries, or anything else that I wanted to, I don't want to use the word fix, but so to speak, correct from over the years of misalignment.
I love that you had someone tell you things felt different. Like that's to me like the best thing is when you do the work and then someone who knows you intimately, who gives you massages regularly, they feel the change, they feel the difference. You're an interesting case. Everyone is so different. And the way I put it is some people, all they want to do is sit on the couch and I got to get them up off their couch. And other people don't want to, they just want to go, go, go. And I knew like as soon as we met, there was no me telling you take a break, right? It was the question of is like, how are we going to figure this stuff out while you continue to do what you did? And if I had said you have to stop, it wouldn't have gone well. And there
You're
are
right.
people like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That doesn't go too well with me. I've had times in the past where I've been told to back off, take it easy. And I have. It's not that I haven't. I've just learned over time to do other things which maybe don't put as much stress on those areas of the body. And yeah, I think the best part of working with you was being able to continue doing what I was doing without, obviously taking a step back and slowing everything down, which is what you reiterated, which, maybe finally after all these years sunk in that, for me to retrain my body, I need to teach it something new. And the only way to really teach it something new is to completely slow down what I'm doing to reinforce those new habits. And I remember I started out with like jogging at 12-minute pace. And as frustrating as that was, that really gave me a sense of, hey, this is what you're doing, which you had corrected in your standing posture and your walking posture, and maybe this is what you now need to do while you're running. And it took weeks to do that, but I managed to get there. And then it was even more challenging. It's just ingrained in me, right? Speed has been ingrained in me at a very young age. So almost anything I do fast. And for me to dial that back, that intensity and that speed back to recorrect was probably the most challenging part of this process. But, it's taught me over time, in addition to just correcting the movements, to engage all of the muscles that need to be engaged rather than just constantly pounding on the same muscles that were getting injured. I think a lot of people miss this part where whether they're doing things fast or they're doing things over time, they're used to working certain muscles. They're comfortable with that. They move on. Just to give you an example of my shoulder, right? So I've always been shoulder dominant with everything I did, not using my upper back muscles, as you always emphasize. And it's only after I finally started using the upper back muscles that I realized that everything doesn't have to be rotator cuff focused. And that's what releases some of the pressure on the rotator cuff. It was the same with my hip flexors. Everything doesn't have to be hip flexor dominant. Even though my abs were strong, for some reason, it was always my hip flexors that kicked in, and kind of balancing that between the quads and the hip flexors and the abs, and actually keeping the psoas loose, which has always been a challenge for me, was really helpful in enabling me to do what I needed to do without necessarily injuring one area of the body.
Yeah, it's wild because not everyone can do that, which is really interesting. But like in your case, we were able to use technique to actually heal, right? When you started supinating, which is using the outer foot less, not only does it help the technique, but using the inner foot more was actually like a healing process. And
That's actually a great example. I just wanted to jump in there to tell you, yes, when I first came to you and you analyzed me walking and jogging, you asked me what I thought the problem was. I knew I was supinating, and I told you I've known I'm supinating for a long time. I haven't been able to fix that, and nobody has been able to help me fix that either, right? People will say wear insoles, but that doesn't necessarily fix your problem, because more often than not, you're not walking around in insoles all day. And if your feet are just not in the position to align, the whole body is off. And this is what I've always said about you. There are a lot of people that can tell you what's wrong with you. Very few people who can actually help you correct that.
that's so great. I love hearing that. And then a flip side to that, which is really interesting. So your knees are better, but you're now having some shoulder issues. And that's been for a while. That's been going on for a while, right? And
Yep.
like I was suggesting my traditional stuff, which is stretching, and then it actually, and again, I'm not kidding. Like I wouldn't say this to everybody in a certain way. I think you know your body really well, but we basically came to the idea of let's work harder, right? Let's actually start using the shoulder more intensely in the right way, not with weights, but with yoga. And it's not fully better, but that does seem to be helping, right?
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, I've always wanted to try to heal myself, so to speak. And this was the perfect opportunity to do that through yoga. I kind of went through various phases with my shoulder where, it started with the impingement, and then it morphed into what you described as a frozen shoulder, where I couldn't do anything and everything was stiff. And then I came out of that, surprisingly, in a matter of days with just doing, I don't want to say intense yoga, but doing a lot of yoga, doing a lot of focused, shoulder stuff that not only opened it up, but which was also strengthening other muscles of the body, which enabled me to release the upper back muscles, which were super tight. And of course, now I'm back to the impingement phase from overdoing something last week. But, even that. And so there's a part of me that knows when it's impinged and it's firing all the time, I need to rest for a few days. And I did. And it was a whole lot better. And I'm back to the yoga strengthening for the upper back muscles that would helped me get out of just the rotator cuff where all of the work was happening. And I think that's exactly what happened, right? I'm years of conditioning of just using the rotator cuff. I go out last week. I try to do a little more than I've done the past few months. And on some level, in the process of doing more, I must have started triggering more of the rotator cuff and not being as conscious of using my upper back muscles. And I must have pinched it again.
Yeah. I mean, what's so interesting, because everyone I work with is so different, and you really know your stuff. You know all your muscles, so the name of my program is Be Your Own Healer, because we work on Zoom, and I don't fix people. I guide people to fix themselves. So you do have a little bit of an advantage, right? You have the will to do the work, and you really do know your stuff. But basically, I'm just giving you suggestions, not all perfect, right? We've let some things go and added some things as we went. But really, the idea is that you're going to figure out how to fix yourself. And for me, that's the only way for it to last, right? That's the only way that it's going to last 10 years and 20 years and let us age really well is if you do the work. And I like doctors. I'm not opposed to doctors, but doctors don't always empower us to do the work ourselves.
Agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's largely about, resolving your symptoms, and that doesn't lend to necessarily changing the root cause that can prevent this from recurring in the future.
Yeah. And it's again, I don't have any knock on medical science. My thing is really you want to learn about your body so that you can partner with your doctor and partner with your practitioners. I love massage and rolfing and chiropractic and acupuncture. It's all great, but not if you go in expecting them to fix you. But if you partner with them, it's much, much more likely to work.
I agree completely.
That's great. So yeah, it's been a really a pleasure to work with you these 4 months. I look forward to keep going. And there's always something to work on and there's always something to change. And especially when you're an athlete, because it is like having a fine-tuned machine, and fine-tuned machines break down more than some other machines.
Yep.
It's just a
Yep.
part of the process. All right. Thank you so much for doing this, Zenia. I really appreciate it. Can't say
Thank you, John.
enough.
Thank
Awesome. Have
you.
a great day. Take care.
You too.